Hey guys, welcome to the Real Deal video blog, and I'm settling nicely into my new place here. Thank you for asking about it. I appreciate it. That's really kind of you. Today I want to talk to you about stigma and shame in addiction and around recovery. There is a lot of stigma associated with addiction, with using drugs, with drinking alcoholically, and there's really a good reason for that. For one thing, addiction is a deadly disease. People die from addiction every single day. It's something to be worried about for the average person. So it's probably good for people to feel a little hesitant about trying drugs or binge drinking or things like that. In that case, a little bit of stigma is good because maybe it'll steer people away from, trying cocaine or heroin or something like that. And, obviously addiction tends to make people do really bad things. People who are in active addiction tend to lie, cheat, steal, among other behaviors like burning down relationships, losing jobs, and generally being a burden on society. And I'm not passing judgment here or anything like that. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm here to do. But it is the unfortunate truth around addiction is that it is a disease, but it's not a disease. It's not a disease like cancer where it's not your fault and it's just something bad that happens to you. It's a little bit different because people who have cancer don't steal from their grandmothers or things like that. So there's a lot of negativity associated with addiction for that reason, and some of it is justified, but unfortunately, it can really cause a lot of problems for people who are trying to do the right thing and find recovery. For one thing, it makes them feel terrible about themselves, and no one feels good knowing that they've done bad things and that society and other people are judging them for having done these bad things. Feeling bad is not a great way to start out trying to get sober, and it can really lead to a vicious cycle where people are feeling terrible about themselves, so they use to feel better, and it just makes the situation even worse, and they just continue to spiral down. That's what addiction can be a lot of the times. And there's another part of the whole stigma and shame thing, and it's that the stigma makes it really hard for people to function in the outside world once they have found recovery. No one wants to give a job to a drug addict. No one wants to rent an apartment to a drug addict or be friends with an addict or alcoholic, obviously. People are a little bit more open-minded nowadays, but that stigma is still very much in place. And like it or not, the sad reality is that if you have a past history with addiction, people will judge you. And so if you're in recovery, you really need to take action. You really need to be proactive against stigma and shame. And really the first step here is dealing with your own shame. No matter what you've done or where you've been, feeling bad about yourself isn't going to solve anything. The goal here is to get sober, to go back to having a healthy, happy, free life, to being a productive member of society, and feeling terrible about yourself and going back to using or drinking, that's not going to get you anywhere. So, I'm not just saying free pass for if you've ever done anything bad, but I am saying it's important to take an honest accounting of what you've done and then make things right. That's what the amends process is for, after all. But then after that, once you've righted the wrongs that you can, and once you've taken that inventory, it's really important to forgive yourself and to do whatever you can to let go of any shame. And that's really the only way around that personal shame. At some point, you just have to let it go. And when it comes to the societal stigma, that's a little bit more complex. In a perfect world, there wouldn't be any stigma. If you announced to the world that you were someone in recovery from drug and alcohol use, everyone would welcome you with open arms. But unfortunately, that's not the way that things are. But there are certainly broad things that you can do to make the stigma better for everybody. You can share your story, you can become an activist or part of a community organization, things like that. And then, unfortunately, sometimes you may just have to use your discretion when it comes to addiction and recovery. Not everyone needs to know that you're in recovery, and I'm not saying that these things should be a secret, but in some environments, like professional environments, it may be best just not to mention addiction at all, because it's great to show people that you're in recovery and that you're doing great, and to fight the stigma that way. But you never know when you're going to run across someone who will judge you and who will really make your life very difficult if they find out that you used to be an addict or alcoholic. And so in that case, it may be better that they don't know at all. And that's this is a discussion that you'll have to have with people you trust, like a sponsor, about what the right thing to do in this situation is. And certainly hiding things is not the best solution. It's not great, but unfortunately sometimes it's what you have to do if you want to get by. And hopefully one day we will all live in a world where recovery is celebrated instead of stigmatized, where people are happy to hear that you've overcome your personal demons. Unfortunately, until then, you'll just have to do whatever you can to work around it.